Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Compounding Podcast. This is our third episode. And to be honest, it's already starting to feel a little self-indulgent. This podcast has been a great excuse for my producer, Johnny, and I to travel around and just talk to rad people. It's a lot of fun. And today is no exception. We're in LA in the home of Mr. Compounding himself, Keith Wasserman. Hey, Keith, thanks for having us in your home.
Thanks for coming by.
Yeah, absolutely. This is going to be a lot of fun. So I have to say, when I decided to call this podcast Compounding, the very first guest that came to mind was you, because you may be the only person alive who uses the word compounding more than I do. So, the idea here is that, I called it compounding because the idea is not to talk about all your many accomplishments, although we'll do some of that. It's really to talk about lessons learned and little things that you've learned along the way that our listeners can use to compound in their daily lives. And so, I guess we'll just start, I'm guessing that there's a lot of overlap in our audiences on Twitter and whatnot. So some of our listeners probably know you from Twitter, but just for background, why don't you just give a quick summary of kind of who you are, what you're up to, not only professionally, but personally, and then we'll start from there.
Yeah, for sure. Well, thanks for having me on the show. I'm really excited. And it's nice to meet in person finally. I've known Kevin a long time. Basically, I'm 37 years old. I have a beautiful wife and 3 amazing children. Minnie, 6 years old, Ziggy, 3, Saul, 2. And everything I do pretty much is for the family and for creating our future. And our business is just one of those methods that I do that my wife and I pretty much work together. And we are creating something beautiful together. We're in the multifamily apartment business primarily. So real estate investing, real estate development. We also buy self-storage properties. But we literally, we go out and help like-minded individuals that are interested in long-term compounding of their wealth, preserving wealth, growing it safely over time with all the tax benefits and cash flow. And the method we use is real estate investment. And we're sort of like an outsourced real estate arm for around 1,500 individuals and families now. Yeah.
Nice. I love that you started with your family, and I'll tell you, you gave me a little tour of your home here before we got started, and I could tell just like you do absolutely start your life with the family. It's clear that that's at the center of everything you do. And I'll also say that it's been really fun. I'm sure you've had this happen too. I've met a lot of people on Twitter, and you feel like you know these people. What's amazing though is in every single case when I've gotten together in real life with people I've met on Twitter, they're exactly the person that I thought they were. Has that been your experience too? Yeah,
for the most part. I mean, I know a few people that push and put more controversial things on there to drive audience. You probably know the same gentleman.
I wonder who you're talking about.
But I try to act my authentic self because I've learned in life, like you attract like-minded people and people, just like being myself is what I want to be and put out there.
Well, I love it. I mean, the positive energy is infectious, and I'm a believer in manifesting, right? Like, your beliefs become reality.
100%.
Cool. Well, talk a little bit also about, because the real estate side of what you do is just one facet of your life, and I think that's the most interesting thing to me.
Yeah.
You're a venture capitalist. You do a ton in the philanthropy space. So talk a little bit about that as well.
Yeah. I mean, I like to look at myself as just a long-term investor, investing in, things that'll provide wealth, but investing in relationships, investing in my family. I'd say on the philanthropy front, we run the philanthropy we started sort of like a business. I look at it as something that can compound over time, and we could continue growing one day at a time and helping more and more people. Essentially, we helped found Resident Relief Foundation, which is a 501c3. And what we do is we help residents that are at risk of being evicted due to a one-time financial crisis. And we saw a lot of people in our own apartments, and a lot of other property management companies had a lot of great renters that just fell on a hardship, may it be job loss or medical emergency, whatnot. And we've helped hundreds of people essentially stay in their homes. And it's a real win-win because the landlord gets to keep a good resident that they don't have to go through the eviction process, which costs money and time, and then the downtime of having a unit vacant and all the eviction costs and the turn costs. It helps the resident, obviously, because once you have an eviction on your record, it's like a black mark or whatever. You can't find housing ever. It's very hard to. No one wants to rent to someone that has an eviction because it's costly, right? So we help people avoid those evictions and essentially prevent homelessness. A lot of these people had nowhere else to go, and would go on the street, which once someone's on the street, it costs a lot more money and resources to house them versus keeping them in their house. So we're growing that like a business. We have a board that we're continuously growing, raising capital, and we've deployed over $1 million helping residents stay in their homes. It's been pretty rewarding. And then on the VC front, yeah, like I've had some friends and friends of friends and that are doing amazing things. I like supporting entrepreneurs and believing in someone and an idea they have. And we've done a decent amount of angel checks, and then we started a small VC fund and then another VC fund. And nowadays I'm focusing just on the real estate biz. I sort of learned that in compounding, you want to really focus on one thing for a long period of time. So if I want to invest in VC, I invest with a lot of great emerging managers. But I support entrepreneurship and people that change the world and that need capital to do it. So
I love how the common thread between everything you do. You talked about your philanthropy, your business is just compounding, right? And you approach everything from a compounding, like how do you build it? And by the way, I think one of the things I often say is I'm a firm believer in capitalism, obviously, but I think it's also the responsibility of people who win in the game of capitalism to give back. And I love that your primary business is real estate, and you've created a philanthropic arm to like address some of the challenges that happen in real estate. So kudos to you. That's awesome.
For sure. Yeah.
All right. So I'm gonna when I first joined Twitter, I think you probably started posting a lot on Twitter around the same time I did. It felt like that the whole real estate twit group took off at the same time. But I remember the first time I ever visited your bio, I was like, I love this guy because your bio says one word, which is compounding. And that sort of does say it all, especially now knowing a little bit more about you. But talk about what that word really means to you. Not just, we all know what it means financially, it's this exponential effect, but just in the way you approach life, because it's clear that that's a really important concept to you.
Yeah. I think what I've learned over time is, people underestimate sort of what they could do over like a decade. Like I look back and I'm like, wow, this is pretty incredible what we've done in our first decade of business. And, just my whole life. And a decade ago, I actually, I'm celebrating our 10-year anniversary this year. So I just literally, got married around 10 years ago, and we've created 3 beautiful souls in this world and a beautiful home. And so I'd say every day, if you make a small bit of progress, small baby steps, Rome wasn't built in a day, right? Like just small baby steps towards the direction, it's compounds into incredible results over a long period of time. And I just never really grasped that until I really sat down and thought about like how my life's changed just over one decade. Sure, you could do it over a week, a month, a year, but like the longer the term, then looking back, it's pretty remarkable. Like, if you just keep at something for a long period of time.
You're my brother from another mother. That's literally my philosophy to life. And it's so simple in concept, but it's hard to internalize. I didn't really grasp the power of it until, honestly, I was in my 40s. And, certain types of people, I'm this way, these driver, achiever types, we're so focused on the goal ahead of us that, a lot of times what happened to me, which was a great thing, but I wish I had been able to enjoy it more along the way, is I woke up one day and I was like, wow, all this stuff I've been doing day after day after day, it's turned into all this amazing stuff. What I need to get better at is stopping to smell the roses along the way.
Yep.
I'm really good at compounding. I'm not so good at like sort of enjoying the fruits of compounding. But it's amazing. It is amazing. Like literally everything in life, you can apply that principle to.
Yeah, everything. It's obviously financially is the first thing you could think of with compounding with numbers. And, but I didn't really understand it also till probably my, call it early 30s. I'm like 37, going to be 38 this year. And it took me a while to really, it's hard for a young person to understand that, I think, that whole concept until you start getting a little older,
But in another way, it's just like long-term thinking. Like we're sitting inside of your beautiful house. And I asked you earlier, about the project, and, you said, well, we bought this lot, was it 5 years ago?
5 years ago, yeah.
And we started designing it 3 years ago, and we started building 2 years ago. And look at this.
Most people don't have they just don't have the grit and determination and the thought of long-term. They're very into short-term, just, I'm going to make money, buying and selling stuff. Like they don't have the patience to really just buy and hold or invest in something for a long period of time or do something for a long period of time. Like, I think they're just on to the next thing, even like in dating nowadays, you could just, with these apps, just swipe to the next person. If you, instead of building a relationship with someone and really pursuing, and it's today's society is into instantaneous gratification. It's the art of delayed.
You said you've been married 10 years now?
10 years, yeah.
So we just celebrated our 25th anniversary a week ago.
Congrats.
And thank you. And I'll tell you, it's so true. It's like, it's so easy to get distracted by shiny objects. And, but it's so gratifying to double down and do that. Like you said earlier, I love it is, little things that you do every day that seem really insignificant over time add up to something incredible. And it's the only way to build incredible things.
Yeah. So. And it could go the other way too. If you do little things that are the wrong way and not the right way.
Bad habits.
Yeah. Bad habits will compound too. So, I've learned the most compounding thing also is like reputation, right? Like keeping a good reputation and, just doing right by people. And I've learned that from my father, who has like a stellar reputation. He's an attorney, and people that he's sued in the past for his clients, they become friends, and he's just a very good person, and just people love him. And,
I love that. One of the things I've started my own company. It's called Swell. And one of the things I'm most proud of is our board of directors and our investors is my resume. It's literally all the companies and people I've worked with over the past 20 years. And I'm so proud of that, including an investor. One of our investors, we had a deal go sideways years ago. And guess what? We're going to go at it again.
That just shows your, the reputation. And
I like to think so. Yeah. But it definitely compounds. Like it's not built through one deal. One successful deal is not a reputation.
I always say, like, I'm not going to become wealthy over one deal with anyone, right? But if I keep producing and providing for the investors over a long period of time, if they do well, we'll do well too.
Awesome. All right. So I'm going to read to you a tweet that you made the other day that I really loved. You said, "Twitter is a beautiful place to meet like-minded people all over the world." So talk about your Twitter journey and the impact that it's had on your life. Because I think, you said earlier before we started recording that same as me, like you started and like had zero expectations for anything. It was just kind of fun.
Yeah.
But what role does it play in your life? Like, what do you get out of it now?
Yeah. I'd say I can't, like when I meet people nowadays, I don't remember if it's from Twitter or what. It just intertwined into my life. It's so enmeshed. So like every day, if I look at my calendar and look back at where I'm meeting these people, it's either directly from Twitter or from someone else that I met on Twitter. So I've had amazing relationships with people that I've done business with, that I've hired, that I've invested in. And just daily, you get like to see actively how people are thinking. And it's good to see not just ideas you believe in, but ideas that could change your mind on something, or people you don't, really agree with maybe. And to just, follow people from all walks of life and that have differing opinions. And it just makes me, I feel like I'm smarter because of it.
That's a good way to put it. How do you engage with Twitter? Because I'm guessing, I was just sitting here while you were talking, I was thinking about like, my Twitter experience is I look forward to waking up every morning, having my morning coffee and doing Twitter.
Yeah.
You have 3 young kids.
Yeah.
You're probably not using Twitter. What does that look like for you on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, it could be a little distracting. So I've set all my notifications actually and all my apps off. So I control my phone versus it controlling me. And I use Twitter whenever I need to take a little break from my, emails, phone calls, whenever I get a 5-10 minute downtime. I look at it for a few minutes, scroll through it, either respond to a tweet or tweet something, whatever I'm thinking that's on my top of my mind. And I use it as a tool just to stay connected with people that I'm currently connected with and maybe make some new connections. So you could get sucked in and spend hours and hours. I looked at my screen time and it's definitely the number one app. I'm probably on there like 45 minutes a day. Mm-hmm. And but I feel like it's a good investment in my career, in relationships with people. It's not just a mindless, like on Instagram, just looking.
Yeah.
Like I'm actually putting things out. And so it's interesting. People use Twitter in all different ways. Some people are just voyeurs. They'll just read and not consume and not put anything out there, which is fine too. I've a lot of amazing people I've met that are just those kind of people. And then they DM me. There's no right or wrong way to use Twitter.
Sure.
I guess there's more controversial ways and you could potentially get kicked off the system and whatnot. But I try to do it from a place of love and like, I don't put anything out there that's too like my political beliefs and stuff that will just rile people up. I'm more just into like, keeping the peace and,
I think
and
I
learning.
I need to take a cue from you on the notifications because I agree with you. It's become intertwined with my life. It makes me a smarter person. That's all true. But it also can start to consume too much time and too much attention.
Yeah.
And so I like how you've compartmentalized that a little bit. Has it, do you feel like it's had an impact on your business?
Yeah, for sure. So I haven't counted, but we have around 1,500 investors, and probably, if I was to guess, a few hundred have been made from Twitter, like yourself. I mean, it opens your circles, right? Like I have circles in the community in LA, specifically like the Jewish community, or I'm in YPO, which is another great community. I'm in Tiger 21. I try to be around. My role for the company now is pretty much just fundraising. So just people that are like-minded that want to invest in real estate, and Twitter opens me up to the world. Like we've had investors that I never would have touched, like you out in Boulder, people in the Midwest that sold some farmland their families owned for a long time, have invested in my deals. Like just random, not in my, I'm sure I'll just be getting a lot more of those people that I wouldn't even thought of before. It opens me up. And then I meet these people and I'm like, these are really awesome individuals, and we're going to form these long-term partnerships, and it's really cool to see.
Yeah. I have a confession to make. So I'm a big real estate investor. I'm in like 30 something deals in LP.
Yeah.
I'm a teeny tiny little investor in Gelt. And actually my primary reason wasn't the deal. It was that I wanted you to feel obligated to do this podcast at some point. So
I would do it even if you weren't an investor.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
Sure.
That means a lot to me.
Yeah.
So I want to switch gears a little bit and talk about a topic that's super important to me, which is this idea of constructing a multidimensional life. I happen to have this really strong conviction that the happiest and actually the most productive and successful people aren't focused on a singular thing like business. They do a lot of things. And it's one of the things I've always liked about you is, kind of watching from afar is it's actually incredibly impressive. I mean, for someone your age, you mentioned just off, in passing, like Tiger and YPO, which are like clearly indications that you've done a lot. You've built this incredible, your portfolio at Gelt is $2 billion or ish.
Approximately. Yeah.
Which is just amazing. You've got this charitable work. You've, you mentioned you're pretty well known for being kind of tuned into the stonks and the NFT. You've got a CryptoPunk so you do a lot of different things. And I do see the thread of how they're all connected, but talk about specifically like, why is it important to you to do a lot of different things? And basically, do you agree with my thesis around being multidimensional?
Yeah, I think I like it because I like trying to stay curious and learning. And, like for the NFT stuff, I listened to an awesome podcast. I think it was called like Modern Finance with Kevin Rose, a really well-known VC. And he had another Twitter guy, DC Investor, on there. And I just I listened to this during the pandemic about NFTs and specifically like some of these early NFT projects. And I'm like, I have a few bucks in Coinbase that are just sitting there, and it's cool, and it's an alternative asset, and I think it'll go up in value. But I think I'll have a lot more fun owning this NFT that will become my sort of online identity,
right? And
I think it will increase in value over a long period of time. It's art, it's a store of value in ether. So I, as a professional investor and someone that also likes having a good time, and I use this as my profile on everything, LinkedIn and Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. And it's, it's really, I just think staying curious and open-minded to things. I think it is important though, like to focus in general, like in real estate, we did well with like owning mobile home parks and different things, but and I was curious about that. But at the end of the day, to make the big results, you got to stick to something for a long period of time. But I'm sort of a serial entrepreneur. I like learning about different things, and it keeps me happy to keep investing in other things and not 100% just with blinders on.
Yeah. So I just wrote down something that I'm starting to think could be the Wasserman formula, which is I wrote down curiosity, focus, and compounding. What I meant by that is it seems like your curiosity allows you to explore lots of things and determine, is this real? Is it not? You play with your own hands, you play with things. Mm-hmm. And then, but that success requires focus. And so you can't go after all of those with equal fervor. Correct. And then once you go after something and you're focused, it's patience and compounding.
Yeah. And it's even hard for me with the patience aspect. And I look at other people in my space that have acquired a lot more properties and they're wealthier and they have, but my wife always reminds me generally this gentleman's been doing it for 35 years. And I've been doing it for like 12 or 13 years. So,
you guys drive me crazy in the real estate, because I'll see people post in real estate twit, like, real estate is not a get rich quick business. Meanwhile, they've been in business for 8 years and they've made like a lot of money.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, I did it the hard way. I was the guy doing it for 30 years the hard way. And so, it's all relative, right? I mean,
It's all relative.
You've been at it for 12 years, which probably maybe feels like a long time. But
it doesn't actually. I feel like I think having that sort of like day one mentality, and I think Jeff Bezos calls this fun, like day one. Like I always feel like the underdog. I feel like I want to prove something. I don't know if it's to myself or to the world, but like, man, just never being really too satisfied and like just if I'm too satisfied and I see people that just lose it mentally, they stop working, they it goes through their head, maybe their wealth or what. But like I want to always feel like an underdog, and I'm always learning, and there's always, I mean, it's sort of sick. There's always someone better and bigger, but like, and how do you tame that kind of thing? But it keeps me driven,
Are you? Do you know your Enneagram number, by the way?
My
your
what?
Enneagram's a personality typing test.
Oh man, I did that before.
I bet you're
ENTJ or something. Or,
no, that's the Myers-Briggs. I'm going to send you a link to the Enneagram because I think you and I are probably wired very, very similarly. But I think you made a really important point around this day one mentality, and I'm wired the same way, and I have the same questions from time to time. Like at some point, it becomes a sickness.
Yeah.
But I see others who have a lot of success, and then they sort of start floundering in terms of a second act. And that's something that I can't even wrap my head around because I'm 51 and I feel like I'm just getting started, because it's really, it does come down to like like that is how I derive fulfillment in life, is that curiosity, that hunger.
Yeah.
I always feel like the underdog. I always feel like I'm just getting started.
Yeah. It's just a mindset. I think anyone could have it, even Bezos, who's the richest guy in the world, and his business is, but they started with that AWS, like, which is much bigger than Amazon. You got to continually reinvent yourself and just, try new things. And I think that's, important for everyone in their business and personal life, I
think AWS is what, like 80% plus of Amazon's profits.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And someone on Twitter the other day commented that had Jeff Bezos pitched investors on AWS way back, they would have said, "What are you? You're crazy!" Like,
exactly. Yeah, and look at it now; it's way more valuable than their core business and growing at such a huge speed, even though it's so large. But they've had some failures, right? They had some massive flops when they tried out different ideas and concepts. I think it was like the Fire Phone or Fire something. I don't know. Yeah. They've tried different things, but you got to try and and continue to push yourself, or else you'll be one of those incumbents that just go down like with the flames, like a Kodak or whatever. They're gone,
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it'll be interesting to see, Bezos was such an iconic founder, and you hear all the stories of the meetings and how demanding, and how long can that sustain? I mean, Amazon, what's their market cap now? Is it
$2 trillion-ish?
Yeah, $2 trillion. Like, it's quite remarkable they've been able to sustain that mentality for so long. You wonder, with Jeff kind of fading into the background, if that sustains.
Yeah.
So that's actually a great segue. I wanted to talk a little bit about this kind of crazy economy we're experiencing now.
Yeah.
And I guess, maybe I'll start because I'm just personally curious, through the lens of like NFTs. So, first of all, I'm just curious because I haven't looked. Like, I'm guessing your CryptoPunk has probably done okay. Like the flight to quality aspect is there. But like, what are your thoughts? Not like, first of all, talk about NFTs and kind of your views on that, but then just the broader economy. Like, what's going on? Are things different this time?
Man, okay. So first, for the NFT thing, people always think I'm professional and NFTs, and I know people that have made a lot of money just flipping things. It sort of reminds me of the day trading, and I took the long-term hold kind of philosophy, right? So my CryptoPunk I bought for like 25 ETH maybe, which was real dollars, like $50,000 at the time, which was a huge investment. But I looked at it as like a piece of art, as utility, all those things. And it went up in value so quickly. I had a feeling what usually goes up fast goes down fast. So this on paper went up to 600,000. Now it's down to like 75,000. But in the back of my mind, I set a crazy, probably a little unrealistic, but maybe not, price target of like $10 million. I said, this thing's going to be worth $10 million one day. And I actually truly believe it. It's a little crazy and out there, but so I'm just holding it and enjoying it. And I'm looking to buy a second one for my wife, a female one, while the prices are very depressed and low. I always thought, all this NFT things, it's new. It reminds me of just like the day trading people flipping, but eventually 99% of it's going to be worthless probably. Right.
Yeah.
And, I see it. I mean, yeah, it's a lot of those things have become worthless, but the whole, it's a unique new technology, and I see people building businesses off of it. And I think it's here to stay, Web3, NFTs, crypto.
Yeah.
It's just very early still. And I'm just curious. I bought a few other NFTs, but I've since sold them when they were up a lot. And I'm like, I don't want to hold these long term. So just get the cash. So I'm going to hold my punk, maybe try to buy another one. And, yeah.
Well, you're playing with house money now.
Yeah.
And I think it's like, well, it's not fundamentally different from, I mean, you have a lot of art in your house. It's not fundamentally different from the IRL art market, right? It's like most art does not appreciate in value. There's a lot of starving artists out there.
For sure it doesn't. And yeah, the way I buy art is I just buy stuff that I like, that I want to put on the wall. And if it does go up in value, great. If it doesn't, I'm going to enjoy it my whole life. So that's the way I look at it.
Heads you win, tails you win.
Yeah.
I love that. And the other thing that I think you mentioned, like Web3, blockchain, distributed, whatever, like it's the earliest of days.
Very early.
I think one thing I do, because I came out of college in 1995 and worked on the web. I joke, like, since the web existed, I've been working on the web, like started companies and stuff. And so I saw Web 1, I saw Web 2, I'm now watching Web 3. The big difference here, and I'm not saying it's good or bad, but with Web 1 and Web 2, the use cases were always completely obvious for it, right? So like Web 1 was publishing, like, oh my gosh, I can write something and everybody in the world can see it instantly. Web 2, you had commerce and social, which, again, becomes a huge part of our life. Web 3, it feels a little bit like, and maybe it's just because we're in the earliest of stages, it feels like kind of like a solution searching for a problem. I mean, do you have the answer for that?
I could see some of that, but I think it's just still so early that there's going to become more and more use cases as it goes on, and more people work on it, right? I mean, I mean, the internet, when you say the early days of the internet, but the internet's been around probably since the 60s or something, right? It took a long time before it really commercialized, and people had PCs at their desk and were able to log on. And it took years before even a lot of people had mass adoption of being able to connect. I remember like the whole Prodigy and AOL, it took a long time. But and then you have the, different waves of technology. And then I think Chris Dixon today, he's a smart guy and big believer in Web3. I like following him on Twitter, big VC with Andreessen. And I mean, it's like, and then you have the smartphone, and so much, like all these new companies were created off when Apple and their smartphone came out. And like you have Uber and Venmo. He was giving all these examples, PayPal, and like iconic huge companies, Google. But they go in waves, with different technology innovations. So it's going to take some time.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, it's just super early days.
Very early. Yeah.
And I guess I certainly wouldn't bet against it, because if for no other reason, there's a insane number of smart people working on it, and an insane number of dollars. On the plane ride out here yesterday, I listened to an interview of Keith Raboy.
Oh, he's
Pomp was interviewing.
Dude. Yeah.
And he said something that just like, in some ways is obvious, but in some ways is like very sort of contrarian. He said, at Founders Fund, we don't bet on trends, we bet on founders.
Interesting.
And so if you believe that, which I do believe, like they look for exceptional founders, he called them like the Michael Jordans of their, if you believe that, then you got to believe that something will emerge from Web3, because there's a lot of incredibly talented founders.
The exceptional founders will pivot and find ways to, make things happen. Yeah, for sure.
All right. So bringing it back down a little bit to the real world is, this economy, with, inflation, rising interest rates, uncertain government policies. Like, let's be a little bit tactical. Like how do you think about that through the lens of your business? And then what does that mean? What opportunities does that create? Like, how are you thinking about this economy?
Yeah. I mean, it's wild. I mean, since the 80s, you've seen rates continuously drop, which I think inflates asset values. Right. And
we forget that context, right, of where rates were.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. I'm a little young, but it's my parents' generation. They remember these times, and it's always in the back of my mind. That's why we've always locked in long-term fixed rate debt, while some of our peers do a lot of floating rate debt. And yes, since we started the company in 2009, I think we were borrowing at like 6%, then in the 5s, then in the 4s, then the 3s, then in the 2s. Some deals we got in the 1s, even percent, rates, which is wild to me. Gosh. But I think, you got to take your lens out, and like, I think, the average rates are usually around like 6% ish, and we've just been way low for a long period of time. So Yeah, they've popped really quickly. I think they're trying to. I'm not a macroeconomic guy, but I think they're trying to like put the economy in a little bit of a small recession, slow things down because it's so heated in terms of inflation and rent growth and the growth in gas prices and food, and they need to slow that down a little bit before it runs away.
But I just read this morning at the same time, they're raising interest rates to slow down an overheated economy. Yet in California, they're going to give out a gas stimulus.
Doesn't make any sense. Yeah,
I mean,
I don't understand. But it's definitely in my business. Like we're buying 200 unit and up apartments, Denver and West. We're seeing values down 5 to 12%. Call it depends on the asset type and location and quality. But you're definitely seeing it make a difference in terms of valuations on deals.
Yeah.
We had one deal that we thought we were going to sell it for like around 85 million. Offers came in like 75 million. We just pulled it off the market because I think long term it'll probably go back up. But it could create a situation where there's going to be some forced sellers that were over leveraged, and especially if rents start slowing down or even declining. Right now, I think it's just unsustainable the amount of growth that rents are seeing, year over year.
Yeah, it's definitely not sustainable.
Yeah, it's bonkers.
And it seems like you're probably pretty well positioned to capitalize on whatever might come out. Is it fair to say? I just kind of a side note. I'm just curious. I've never been a GP, always an LP, but for a long time across a bunch of deals. And my read on Gelt was like, you guys are sort of a scale player. Like you're compounding steady. You're not looking for the spectacular hits on any one deal.
Yeah.
You're shooting for kind of just scale.
Yeah. I'm trying to create a machine that will grow beyond just me and my partners that could be from generational wealth. And I think if you're doing it with your own money, you could, buy one deal a year, one deal every 2 years, and you wait for that huge home run. My goal is to preserve wealth and deploy capital for investors,
right,
and hit those consistent singles and doubles. And if they become a triple or home run, great. But I'm not trying to swing for the fences every time. And if I did, I would take, I think, too much risk by taking with my own money. Sure, I could lever up more and do all kinds of creative stuff. But when we have this many people and with their hard-earned money, and especially in real estate, in VC, you want to have a lot of zeros if you're investing early stage, because like you're swinging for the fences. You're trying to find those big outliers, and some people don't hit it, right? But you need one to make up for the rest. Real estate, you don't want any donuts. You don't want any zeros, because
that's the beauty of real estate.
That's the beauty of real estate. Yeah, just compounding over a long period of time, tax advantages, doing it safely. Well, that's the way we look at it. And
No, I mean, look, we all get caught up in the eye-popping IRRs, and I remember when I started seeing your deals, like I think the one I invested in was, you were projecting a 12 IRR. At the time, it was like, well, that's, Keith, that's half of what I'm seeing. But I totally get it. Like it's just a different.
Look, we show. Look, we like under promising and over delivering. That's part of our whole spiel, and I think that's the compounding way. And over a long period of time, those high IRRs you could hit if you take higher leverage and if you do short term holds and we have hit way higher than those IRRs on a lot of deals. But we didn't project that. And I don't want to train the investors that we're going to be in that. Our business is the long-term hold, and we're not into flipping and stuff. It's a different mindset.
And just for any listeners, I've seen your track record. It does speak for itself. Like, it's not a 12 IRR. And some of it goes back to, was it Warren Buffett who said, like, everybody's a genius in a bull market? Like,
exactly.
Everybody in real estate's had great returns over the past few years.
It's hard not to, but what'll separate the big winners from the losers is being able to capitalize when the market turns. And our portfolio is like, we're very low leverage. We have a lot of reserves. So when the time comes and there's asset repricing, our existing portfolio, sure, the cash flow will dip a little bit short term, but we'll be prepared to pounce on new opportunities where a lot of legacy people are going to have issues with their portfolios and putting out fires, and they won't be able to see the new opportunities that come.
Yeah. I mean, that is, we talked a little bit about my company, and we're trying to enable access to this type of investment for unaccredited investors. And that is absolutely the strategy we want to democratize. Hey, one other point I want to make, and then I want to move on to more personal stuff, just for listeners, is, the thing that I wish I would have learned at a much younger age about real estate specifically is just you have these dials, right? So I like to say, like, opportunity is not evenly distributed, and recessions are not evenly distributed. And I think real estate's the ultimate example of that. I like to remind people that the beauty of real estate, especially if you're an LP, is you have control over some really big levers, right? So first of all, you can pick your GP. So like I would, personally, why would you invest with a new GP when you can go invest with a Gelt who's got, this track record this long, and here's my, we haven't had zeros. You can also choose your asset class. I happen to believe that multifamily, like people need a place to live. There's a housing shortage, especially in certain areas, and which leads me to the last thing, which is you can also choose your geography.
Correct.
And so, the example I like to point to is in the great financial crisis in 2008 and beyond. It was probably the biggest housing meltdown we'll see in our lifetime, I like to believe. If you look at housing prices and compare different geographies, it's stunning how different. So the one I like to compare is I have a chart that compares, using the Case-Shiller index, compares Phoenix to Dallas. So Phoenix had the huge ride up and then a massive crash. A lot of people got hurt. Dallas was just trucking right along the whole, like literally someone forgot to tell Dallas that the recession happened last time.
Yeah.
And so I just like to point that out for listeners that, that's the beauty of real estate. It's an asset-backed investment that tends to appreciate over the long horizon. So if you're a long-term thinker, and then you have these dials, and you use those dials in your business. I mean, you're investing in Colorado, and
we like to geographically diversify for that same reason.
Yeah.
I mean, I think you could become an expert in one area, in one asset class, but I think you're opening yourself up to some. In case, what if if you're just in LA and there's a major catastrophe, earthquake, or if you're in a city that relies on one employer, or so that's why we go to major markets and we diversify into a lot of major markets. But I tell our investors you should invest with other sponsors that are like-minded, that are doing different asset classes and in different parts of the country. Let us be your Denver West multifamily expert, and let someone else handle the Southeast, which is growing, or wherever you're interested in Texas. Yeah.
Well, we're doing exactly what I promised not to do, which is we're going down the real estate rabbit hole, which is fun. But I want to shift gears a little bit to kind of more of your personal life, because as I said early on, my idea for this podcast was I want to meet rad people, and they've all done great things. I want to hear about that, but it's really more about the lessons you've learned, things that people can apply. And I guess I'll start with, I met your wife before we started recording, and like me, you married above your pay grade, which is congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
And but she's also into real estate, and you guys do a lot. You mentioned you guys do a lot of things together, and you've got 3 kids. Like, talk to me about how that works, because there's pros and cons, right, to being like doing everything together. So how do you kind of achieve that balance?
Yeah, we try to create a little bit of separation. So we call her venture Skya Ventures. Her last maiden name was Alexandrovskaya, so she went by Skya. And essentially, she gets to direct her own deals, and she utilizes our resources, but she's not a direct partner in Gelt. That way, there's a little bit of separation. But in all reality, I mean, we're talking a lot about real estate together, and I enjoy creating something with her, and she understands my ups and downs. I understand her ups and downs. And sometimes we have to turn off the business talk, and because we were a romantic couple first, friends, romantic. So at times it could be a little too much, but I enjoy having that person in my corner that understands our business and could speak that language and will support me, and I support her, and we're creating something together.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I want to keep moving because we could go on all day. There's so many things I want to talk to you about, but I'm going to read you a quote that I was doing a little background research, and I ran across an article, and there was a quote where you said, "My cousin Damien, who I think is your co-founder, and I are serial entrepreneurs. We had ideas, but they didn't always work." So talk about the role of failure. Social media, Twitter, whatever, it's like the highlight reel of all the great stuff.
Yeah, no one talks about the failures.
No one talks about the failures, and we've all had them.
Yep.
You mentioned earlier, like a couple lessons you learned are like mobile home parks, but talk not only about like the lessons learned, but like how did that shape you, who you are? Like how do you rebound, and how does that make you think going forward?
Yeah, I mean, we've had failures. I mean, I think I've shared one of the first deals we bought. We lost $35,000 for one of our investors, but we came out of pocket and paid him back, even though it hurt. Wow. And that was a lot of money for us when we were just starting the business. But we created a track record. We haven't lost any money for anyone. That investor has continuously invested with us and told his friends and family, and it just compounds. So let me just pause there.
So like you said it in passing, but we've never lost any money for anyone.
Yeah.
Like that's huge. When I talk about, in real estate, picking your GP, That's a great place to start. Someone
Yeah.
who hasn't lost money over, 12 years or
Yeah.
whatever, billions of dollars. So
Yeah.
amazing.
Sorry, I got a little distracted. Well,
And you came out of pocket to make sure
and
that didn't happen
We
in your
didn't
first
have
deal.
much. I was living at home still with my parents, but like I knew that long term that was going to be the right.
Yeah. We were talking about just failure and like what you've learned through those.
Yeah. And Damien and I, my cousin, we tried to launch other businesses, tech related businesses, and just never got anything off the ground. And this opportunity sort of fell in our lap when we saw, I think you just got to be always curious. So we saw housing prices down 75% in Bakersfield, and that's where we got our start. People say, why Bakersfield? That's the only place we really could afford, where we bought a fourplex for 150 grand, but it previously sold for like 500 grand. And Damien's father was out there buying and renovating and selling like 5 to 15 unit kind of apartment communities. And we learned just by doing, driving up to Bakersfield. And we made a lot of mistakes, in our early days, and we still make mistakes, but we try to learn from our mistakes and not make those same mistakes,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, failure is inevitable. It's how you react to it.
It's how you react. And I've seen some entrepreneurs that have had big failures. I'm friendly with the founder of Box, Aaron Levy, and he had different startups. I remember I always joke with him, like multiple startups that just never took off until he started Box, and the rest is history. He's been at it for decades now.
That's the part of the story, it's like the overnight success, 10 years in the making. It's the part of the story you never hear.
Of course.
We need to talk more about.
Yeah.
All right. So, broad question, again, I'm going to reference another tweet of yours.
Sure.
I think it was literally just yesterday's. I think strip mall guy said,
it's my buddy.
He's so cool. What does retirement look like? And you said, doing exactly what I'm doing, which, by the way, you beat me to it because I was going to type that same response.
Yeah.
So that kind of answers my question. I just want you to expand on it. So the question is, what does success look like to you? You answered by saying, what I'm doing now.
Yeah.
So talk about that a little bit.
I think people like work and they keep thinking of retirement and retire. I don't want to stop doing what I'm doing. I enjoy it. And I think, what am I going to do all day, every day if I'm not doing what I'm doing?
That's
right. Like I would be bored out of my brain. There's only so much golf. I play golf once every 2 weeks. If I play more than that, it's just too much. What else? Travel a little more, maybe. I mean, I already spend a lot of time with the family. Like, what am I going to do anything different? Right. So I'm just going to continue doing what I'm doing,
So I posted something the other day on Twitter. It said, no matter who you are, if you're a billionaire or you're a pauper, we have to fill 16 hours every day. And to your point, like, what am I going to do every day?
Yeah.
And I'm the exact same as you. Like, starting in my mid 40s, I got way more deliberate about this and was able to get to a point where I am pretty quickly where I wouldn't have it any other way. And by the way, that includes deliberately choosing to do hard things. Like I struggle, and there are days when I go, what have I gotten myself into?
Yeah.
But I've learned that that's a vital part of feeling fulfilled.
Yeah. Not every day is going to be up and to the right. And, I have a lot of down days too.
Yeah.
And I don't talk much about it, but that's just part of life. And it's like how you deal with it, and, just hope the next day is going to be better, and staying optimistic. I think it's important.
I think this idea, and you call it retirement, like this idea that we're sprinting for some finish line, it's just a mirage. Like there is no finish line. The best you can have it is having some control over your time and some control over the challenges you undertake.
Yeah.
Were you deliberate about this, or like, how did you get here?
No, I just learned. I mean, I've never had a traditional job, I guess. I don't think I would do well working for someone. I literally, one of my father's friends, my dad wanted me to work for this guy, and he's a big time real estate developer. And I called my dad. I'm like, Dad, I can't do this. They're having me push papers around, and I have no problem with that, but I want to do it for myself. I don't want to do it for someone else. Right. So, I left at lunchtime. I didn't even finish the day. My dad's like, at least finish the day.
That's awesome.
So I've always liked creating things and being my own, boss. And, I work for my investors. There's no one that's fully, out there on their own. Right. But like, I like having the autonomy to work at that. I think real financial freedom and freedom in general is like doing what you want, when you want. And like, I think, freedom of your time. Right.
Yeah. I'm going to ask you a question that's asked so often, it's become kind of a cliche. But I think it's a great question. I really want to know the answer that you'll give is, so if you could rewind and talk to 20-year-old Keith Wasserman, is there one thing you would say? Would you not change anything? Or is there something you'd say that would maybe, allow you to reach a a better spot faster?
I'd say just everything's going to be okay. Just keep at it. And, I went through a lot of ups and downs, in high school, and, give myself a hug and be like, everything's going to turn out really beautiful.
This too shall pass.
This too shall pass. Yeah.
Whether it's good or bad. I think there's a lot to be said for that.
Yeah.
All right. Couple more questions here. I ask this question in almost every interview I do with candidates for positions at my company. I like to ask everybody this question: what's something that you're looking forward to?
That's a good question.
Like it could be small, like, hey, I want to play around the golf tomorrow.
You could answer it however.
Yeah.
I'm curious. After I give my answer, I'm curious what kind of answers you're looking for and stuff. But like when you said that, I'm looking forward to celebrating our 10-year anniversary.
Awesome.
We've both never gone to Italy, so we're going to do 10 days in Italy. The two of us without the kids we've never left the kids for more than 2 days, so it's going to be a nice break and spend time to reconnect with my wife in a meaningful way without the kids, and laugh and have fun, and live life like pre-kids. And
right.
Marriage is tough enough, but with throw 3 little kids in, it's very stressful. And I love the kids dearly, but it's nice to be able to reconnect with my wife in Italy. It'll be awesome. Yeah.
When are you going?
End of July. Yeah.
Amazing. I for me, and I often counsel younger people to adopt this if it works for them, is I always like to have something on the calendar that I look forward to. You've got this trip in July, and even if it's something small. So for example, I've got a couple longer range things, but I'm climbing on Friday in Boulder with a good friend of mine, and climbing, as we were talking about this before we started recording, it's my Zen activity. And I know that no matter what happens, good or bad, through the week, on Friday, I'm going climbing and I'm going to have a good time. And that's just a really important reset.
To have small, like, things that make you, excited and happy. Once a week things like golf for me is my kind of religious experience, being on the golf course, flow state. I think it's important to set those in your calendar just, once every so often, for sure. Yeah.
Dude, this has been amazing. This is such a great chat. I'm going to end with one last question, which is an easy one.
Okay. Can
I have a ride in your new Tesla Plaid?
Fuck yeah. let you drive it, man. That thing is like a rocket ship. I mean, I've been talking about compounding. Elon from day one set out his mission, and people doubted it and didn't believe it, and he's executed on it, even though he says certain dates he want, but he's a madman, and he's made it happen. And every other car I see around here is a Tesla, and this is my 4th Tesla now, and they're beautiful vehicles. I haven't gone to a gas station in like freaking 10 years about now. It's amazing. Yeah.
I'm a huge Elon fanboy. Never bet against Elon.
Don't bet against
Elon.
Elon.
Don't bet against Keith Wasserman.
Thanks, Kevin.
Thanks, man.
Yeah.
It's good.
Good times.